Everyone. First and foremost, thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, specifically focused around how to build your LinkedIn profile. This event is part of a series of webinars and EPB resources surrounding the topics of the economy and labor law, small businesses, government support, investment, and real estate, amongst many others. My name is Hussein Haji, and I'm the National Program Director for the Skills and Employment Program. And on behalf of the entire EPB, I want to firstly thank our speaker, Jabin Boga Jamal, for being with us today and sharing these valuable strategies and tips when working with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a powerful connective tool that gives you the ability to showcase your profile, expertise, recommendations, and connections, demonstrates credibility in your industry, highlights your achievements, and is often the first professional impression that recruiters and employers may have of you when searching for candidates. It's become an integral piece in recruitment and is so fundamental, particularly as we move further into a digital environment and securing the employment that you're seeking. Whether you're looking for employment, shifting industries and pivoting, looking to build your network, grow your business, obtain new customers and key contacts, LinkedIn can help you grow in your career in so many ways. Our goal today is to provide some suggestions and strategies that you can employ now in order to set yourself up for success as best as possible. So to introduce our speaker, Jabin Boga Jamal is a Regional Human Resources Business Partner for Western Canada for Rivera Inc., currently serves as Chair for the Career Advancement Network with CPHR for the BC and Yukon regions, serving to help all levels of professionals to secure employment. And she's also been teaching in Ashton College for over 5 years in their Human Resources program, where she has been recognized as a featured faculty member for innovative teaching practice. She also currently serves as the Ismaili Civic Lead for British Columbia. I now introduce Jabin, and I pass it along to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Hussein. Much appreciated. So we're going to start off with our agenda for today's session on how to build an effective LinkedIn profile. So we've done our introductions. We're going to talk about writing the summary, making yourself stand out. We're going to talk about mapping out your skills and really developing your brand. We'll talk about networking, making connections and joining groups, and then how your profile looks through the employer's lens, and then some final tips. So to get right into it, make yourself stand out is the first section we'll start with. So if you can see here, yes?
Before you jump into it, can I ask a quick question? This is something that comes to EPB all the time, and I know in my professional networks, people always ask. We have a variety of individuals watching today, from those that are young in their career to those that are established professionals to those that are looking to retire in the next few years. Who is LinkedIn appropriate for when you look at, if I'm seasoned in my career, I'm looking to retire, or if I'm young in my career, who does LinkedIn really look out for when it comes to who should be on it?
That's a great question. I would recommend university students and above join it. That's because there's a lot of great resources on LinkedIn. One of the things that all employers will look for in industry professionals is, are you on LinkedIn? That's typically one of the first things I check for. You can join groups, you can join influencing groups, you can join company pages, a variety of different avenues. You can gain so much in industry resources. As a student, you want to be able to profile your work. You want to show what kind of employment you're looking for upon graduation. The other piece, so as a student, it's really good to be active in that avenue. If you're intermediate to senior professional, even starting off your career, it's good to join these groups that we'll talk about in later sections of today's presentation. The other thing is you can really see like-minded industry professionals and connect with them. For those that are more senior and older, I know my father said, why should I join LinkedIn? And I told him, you can connect with so many other industry professionals at your level that may be looking for people to join business ventures. You may be looking to secure employment. For him, he was looking for a part-time employee. So I said, it's a great avenue. You can actually create your own employer webpage within LinkedIn. You can create a page or a group that's free of cost, and you can advertise your company to gain revenue, but also for people who are interested in employment. And you can post jobs that you're hiring for on there. You can invite so many people to your group. I personally have my own group page for my career advancement network. So I think it's a great avenue. And I think no matter where you are in your career, it's never too early to start. I would suggest university, first year university is a good point, to even retired individuals. They're still on it to stay active, to see trends that are happening within their industry.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So this here is my actual profile page. So if you see, I have my name and my designation. If you have any licenses, any certifications, it's great to put it behind your name. I use the commonly known name. So although I'm married, I use Jabeen Boga because that's the name that's most applicable. So industry professionals know me through this name. So you may choose to hyphenate your name. You may choose to put your former maiden name in brackets, but it's a great avenue to put your commonly used name here. I wouldn't suggest nicknames. If you do have a nickname, put it in brackets under your first name. Other thing is here, your job title. Now, you don't have to put the actual job title that you're working. You can put the job title that you're looking for or you hope to aspire to within reason. If you're entry level and you put vice president, that's unreasonable. So you have to, take it with a grain of salt and put something that is within reason of you being able to accomplish within your threshold. So if I was looking to be a VP, I might say aspiring vice president, something like that. I'm amalgamating two titles to reflect my human resources experience, but also my instructor experience. So that's something you may want to do as well if you're open to jobs in either avenue. If you can see, I have an appropriate professional background picture. This one, you want to put a professional picture that really captivates and captures you, typically just a headshot of your face. I recommend, you can take one against a white wall, blue wall. You can use a photo that you might have used earlier on in your experience. There are a lot of companies that are willing to do it. Some are doing it free of cost during the pandemic, so they'll do it virtually for a session with you. Typically costs around $50 if you're looking to pay, but I'm sure a lot of us have good pictures that we can crop and use for our LinkedIn profile. So make sure your picture is professional and it reflects you and that it's good clarity. Okay, and for all of these sections I've talked about, there are privacy settings. So you can choose who sees these. So for example, you could choose anyone who Googles you could see all of this. Or you could choose only your accepted contacts can view all of this. Or you can choose within that only certain contacts can see your picture. So this is all under the privacy section. If you search under help, it actually walks you through step by step on how to change your privacy settings. As a job seeker, I would recommend keeping all of these sections public so that an employer could see your job title, they could see your picture, and they could see a bit of a summary. So under the summary about, I have a high level overview of my experience. So I think it's really good to do about 2 to 3 sentences of a high level overview of what really summarizes you. What are your key skill sets? What can you offer? And what could you offer to a future potential role? So now we're going to go through activity 1, which is writing the summary. This is the main section of your LinkedIn profile, the area that will capture everyone after the picture and the header. So this is your work experience. So here you see typically on LinkedIn, when you type in your company name, the logo will appear. So in this case, by a tab, the logo appeared. So I recommend making sure that you state your company name exactly as it's listed and seeing if the logo comes up. If it doesn't, if it's a smaller company, you might want to add a descriptor within the profile of what the company does and what it stands for. Under the next section, there is the actual job title. So this is someone that I mentored, their job title. It says the job, People and Culture Coordinator. What's really important is that you reflect the job title that you're actually doing. This is because if I were to do a reference check or validate your experience, you want to make sure that it's reflecting an accurate job title. Some employers may ask for confirmation of employment letter. The confirmation letter will also state your actual title. So be reflective of that. If you're looking to be adventurous, then in the previous slide that we have, this is where you can really outline your job title. So on the previous slide here, going backwards, this is where it says Senior Human Resources Manager. That's where you want to highlight the title that you aspire to be, but not in the actual experience section. You want to validate what is my real title. And then within that section, you can put different avenues. So if you were an operations manager and you did some customer service, you could first highlight your role as an operations manager and what you did. Then you could highlight customer service. And this example that I share with you, they really described the organization and its cultures. For me personally, I would only do a profile like this if I was looking for a startup or a tech company. I recommend keeping it professional. So really like a resume stating what you did and maybe one sentence on what the company does if you feel it's necessary. Typically for my current position or my most recent position, I'll put the month and the year to present or to the year and date. For everything prior to that, I will only put years. I will not actually put the months. Another great option is to add media. So some people might have worked on amazing projects. So long as you're able to share it, it's not confidential or privileged information, then it's a great option to share media, external links, any video or publications. Any major awards your company has won that you may have contributed to, or anything that would add profile to your role is a good idea to share. I've only done this for one of my employers. I suggest it's up to you whether you want to use it. Some people do it for every single one. It really is what adds value. That's really what you need to reflect on.
Jabin, when it comes to a resume, we always say like tailor it to the job that you're applying for. LinkedIn is kind of a past history and a current state of where you're at. So when you look at work experience, like what should be included? Should you be going fairly far back? Should you have all your history? Should it be things that apply to your current position? What should you be sharing on a LinkedIn profile with respect to previous experience?
That's a great question. So for me, if I'm trying to apply to an instructor job, I actually tweak my whole LinkedIn profile. So I save various LinkedIn profiles. What I would suggest you do is target towards the job that you're applying to and highlight the skills based on that job. So really a catered approach. If you know you want to be an operations manager, I would recommend the experience that you include, highlight that of an operations manager. In terms of how far back to go, I would say so long as it's relevant experience, I would include it. If you're jumping around a lot, you want to be a bit careful and you can indicate contract or outsourced or centralized. But in the case of if you have 1 year or less of experience, I would suggest putting more employers. If you have lengthy experience, then maybe 3 or 4 would be good because it would substantiate your experience. Really what you're trying to do is you're looking at the job description and you're looking at your profile, even though it's LinkedIn, and you're saying, does this fit the industry and the position that I'm applying to? Because this is your brand. So you want to make sure you reflect on it. If I was applying to an HR manager role, I wouldn't have an instructor profile. I would have that of an HR manager. Mine is kind of amalgamated, but it focuses much more on the HR side than the instructor side because that's the avenue I'm trying to target. So I would say really reflect on your goals, reflect on, what is my next position? If there's two of interest, what are you currently applying to more? So if you're looking at maybe I could do accounting or I could do finance. If you're looking more towards finance, I would target it to that of a finance professional. What's really cool about LinkedIn is we can look at professionals that we aspire to be like, and we can see what they've highlighted in their LinkedIn, not to copy it, but just to get an idea. I don't recommend, taking anything verbatim, but just getting ideas. What did they highlight? They're at a similar experience, similar level to me, and that might give you ideas and suggestions as well.
Oh, that's fantastic advice. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. So the next session we're going to go through is your volunteer experience. One of the things that I've actually done is I've taken some of my volunteer experience out and put it with my employment experience. That's because some of that volunteer experience added credibility to that of an HR manager. So I thought that would add a lot of value. If you feel any of your volunteer experience would be better with your employment experience, then I suggest you move it upwards. But one of the things that I want you to note is you don't want to have all volunteer experience in your employment history. You want to only have maybe 1 to 3, no more than that. I personally only have 1 because I feel it would add value. I would not put my Smiley Civic role within my employment experience because it's not relatable. But if I was working in a community relations role, I definitely would. Something that's doing outreach and doing things in the community to give back, Smiley Civic would fit wonderfully in that avenue. So again, looking through what is the profile, what is the brand I'm trying to highlight. With volunteer experience, you can put months and years, or you can do just years. It leaves that option to you. What I suggest you do is you put the organization that you're volunteering at. So just like you're doing an employment experience, the organization, the title, the date you started to is it present, and then providing an outline of what it is. So what is the advisory council in this example? Because people aren't going to know. And again, keep it brief, no more than 3 sentences. And typically I would say do bullet points. For me, what I chose to do is rather than writing what I did, I wrote what the organization does. I felt that that was better reflected. So for each one, I gave a description of what that volunteer organization aims to do. For you, you might choose an amalgamation of what does the organization do and then what did I do in my role. So I'll leave that decision up to you. Again, you don't want to take too much space and you want the highlight to really be your employment experience and your skills summary. So about me, that's where you want it, the most of the information to be, and you want it to be ease of readability. So I normally keep this on as a secondary, just brief, but also to say, hey, I'm well-rounded. I also volunteer outside of my work experience, and I'm trying to highlight things that I do within my career, but also outside. So I think it's a good avenue. If you do things that are completely outside, like Big Brother, Big Sister, or any other volunteer experience, even within the Smiley community, it's a good opportunity for you to highlight, but make sure that the description you're giving is accurate and make sure that your role title is reflective of what you're doing.
Jabin, would you share any key achievements that you've had through volunteer experience on your LinkedIn profile, or is that something you would normally reserve for the resume itself?
So one of the things I might say is, would that be better in the skills summary? So about me, would it be better to highlight any awards or any really key achievements that I've accomplished? If it's relatable to the area you're trying to achieve, for example, community relations, I might highlight one of the projects that we did really well in a Smiley Civic up there. But if I feel that it's not, I would say put it within the volunteer role. Only highlight it and put it elsewhere if it's relevant to the career profile, to the job description that you're looking for. Otherwise, stick to keeping it within the volunteer section.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So recommendations. Some people say, is this necessary? Should I get a recommendation? I say that it adds significant value. I would highly recommend getting a recommendation. So here at the bottom of your profile, there is a recommendation section. It actually shows every recommendation that you've given and every recommendation that you've received. This person has received 6. That's great. For me, an ideal number would be 3 to 4. I think that anything more than that number is a little bit too much. Anything less doesn't substantiate you enough. So 3 to 4 is an ideal number. And then for those recommendations, I would say get it from a wide variety of resources. So you don't want everything just being volunteer recommendations. You want it to speak to your work profile. And I would recommend going recent, but going longer term back. So I have employers from 5 years back that have given me recommendations. I have one volunteer recommendation. I have one from my current employer. That way it's well-rounded and it shows you're versatile. It's not just your old experience. It's not just new. It's not just work. It's well-rounded because you're trying to demonstrate that you're a well-rounded individual.
Jabin, would you suggest that if you don't have many recommendations or you haven't kind of done this before, would you suggest soliciting recommendations from individuals you've worked with in the past? And how would you suggest you go about doing that if it's been several years and you don't want to, and you might feel awkward about asking for it now?
That's a great question. That's actually something that I did. So I realized that, a few years back, I needed more recommendations. So what I did was I connected with an old supervisor, asked how they were doing, and asked if they would feel comfortable providing me a recommendation. I left it very open-ended. So I said, hi, Darlene, would you feel comfortable giving me a recommendation about my experience at company doing this position? Because you might have done multiple positions, so you want to be specific. It would be of great value for a supervisor. Usually, I would always suggest a supervisor or above, not a peer, because it's a recommendation. Think about a reference letter. You typically wouldn't get it done by a peer. You would get a supervisor or above. So I would explain why I was hoping to get it. I really think coming from you would add a lot of value to my profile. So again, I wouldn't do a blanket statement. I would customize it to whoever I was asking, and I would make sure that I want that person to be present on my profile because everyone will see it. If they say yes, so if I asked you, Hussein, you said, yeah, I'd love to, then what I would respond back with is areas that I'd want you to highlight in the recommendation. So I'd say, I'd really like it if you highlighted, my volunteer experience, particularly with Civic, and I'd like you to highlight these projects. Again, you're not being demanding, but you're just saying it would be really nice if you highlighted this specific experience. So in the recommendations, they know. And they may come back and say, what do you want me to write? And some of them, you may say, could you send it to me before you post? You may want to do that step. I've done that with some and I've taken a look at it and I've said, I'd like it a bit shorter, or could you tweak this? You don't want to be too demanding, so gauge the reception of the person you're asking. If you think just two messages are good enough, then that's fine. And I would recommend, I did it through email. If you don't have them as a LinkedIn contact yet, do it over email and just say, this is what I'd like to do. You may want to pick up the phone and have a chat with them to explain and catch up to them to see how they're doing. Really gauge it. If you haven't talked to someone for 10 years and you ask for that, I don't think it's appropriate. I think sending an email just to say, how are you, really missed working with you, and just a polite email to test the waters, see if they respond, and then I would present the request for the recommendation.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. For me
You,
personally, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say you triggered another question in my mind, which
Sure,
is,
sure.
especially when you're reaching out to someone, that you haven't worked with in several years, and you're trying to track down an email address. To what degree does LinkedIn kind of play that role now as your new Rolodex, like in terms of managing
Yep.
your contacts? Is that the new tool that we should be using, where historically we've used like business cards and old emails, and how do we keep on top of that?
Yeah, so as a rule of thumb, not a pandemic situation, but I recommend if you meet someone within 24 to 72 hours that you add them to your LinkedIn. I always write a descriptor. So, hi, Darby, it was pleasant meeting you at this networking event. I wanted to add you, really enjoyed our conversation on ABC. So I recommend 24 to 72 hours. In the example you've given where it's been a while, I look up previous supervisors, previous colleagues, and I add them to my LinkedIn. And I send them a message. Been a long time. Great to see you on this platform. How are you doing? Are you still with TD? You can see it on the profile, but I just want to create a dialogue, a two-way dialogue. And then what I do to stay active within that Rolodex is on holidays. So around the winter holidays or other avenues, I touch base with them. And in LinkedIn, you can see when someone's promoted or changed companies. So I use that as an opportunity to connect with them as well. I'll send them a personal message. So in a future slide, we'll talk about how to send a message. Anytime you do it, you want to make sure it's catered. But if you do not have them on your profile, it's a good opportunity to add them. And I would recommend any time during your course of your employment at employer, adding them or adding them after you leave so it stays active. The more recent, the better, which is why I say 24 to 72 hours. But if for whatever reason you didn't add someone, it's never too late to, but add a personalized message as to why.
That's amazing. Thank you. Great
Yeah,
advice.
no problem. Thanks. So then the next step is to map out your skills. So this is always a brand. You're always developing your brand. You can follow a number of companies. One of the things I say is if you're following companies, that's great. But if you're working for one company, if you're working for TD and you want to follow RBC, I wouldn't recommend doing that publicly. So again, on LinkedIn, there are avenues where you can make it private where you're following a company. So when you hit follow, you can actually go into the privacy settings and say, make that private, so no one can see it, so it's not displayed. So you have the option whether you want it to be visible on your profile or whether you don't want anyone to see that you're following it. The beauty of following a company is that you get to see all of their updates. If they've merged with a company, if they've bought another company, if they have job postings, if they have a major announcement, you get to follow all of that. And later on this presentation, we'll talk about the LinkedIn app, but there's something called push notifications. So every time the company you're following has activity, you have an option to getting a notification so that you always know. So I think that's really great when you're looking to follow a company. I also think it's great when, if I was considering Amazon, for example, what would be fantastic is I'd be able to see all their activity so that if I was interviewing or amidst the interview process, I could see everything new that was changing. Or if they open a second location in Vancouver, I know jobs are going to come here. I'm going to have an option. I might set some alerts on their page, or I may actually go to their website and you can set alerts, which we'll talk about in a future session, on how to find jobs. So following is a great idea, but whether you want it visible or not is something you have to think through, and you have to be a little bit cautious, especially if you're following competitors or if you're following so many companies. If you follow too many, it's information overload. You might think, oh, it's great, I'm going to follow all of these, but trust me, from my own experience, it's too much to keep up with. You want a targeted approach, and you want to keep a few companies, I would say 10 or less, that you're following, so you can stay on top of everything, because then it comes to a point where it's just too much information, especially during the pandemic when there's so many changes. You want to be a little bit, you want to stay up to date, but you want to also be a little bit cautious that you're not overwhelmed by too much information.
Jabin, you mentioned this earlier, but when it comes to, developing and conveying your brand, particularly on LinkedIn, and your first touch point is that invite to a potential contact that you make. When you're trying to convey your brand, how would you suggest someone even adds a new contact? Is it, the default method that LinkedIn gives you? Would you add a personal message? What happens if you've never met the person, but you just really want to get connected to them because you think they might be an influencer in your industry or could share some insight? What does that first touch point look like in conveying your brand so that the person adds you and starts to engage in the conversation?
That's a good question. One of the things that most people do that really sets them back is they don't add a personalized message. That adds so much value. For me, if I don't know the person, I don't know how I've met them or why they're adding me, I hit decline or I ignore it. There was someone that attended one of my previous classes, and they were registered, but I didn't know who they were and I hadn't yet met them, so I declined. If they had written that, hey, professor, I'm going to be in your class, I'm really excited to learn from you, and this September, or anything like that, I would have hit accept. So if there are different levels of contact. If they are particular level, that will allow you to actually send a message. And when you send a message, you want to always cater, always customize it. For me personally, I put it in a Word document. It's because I want to check for spelling, I want to check for grammar, I want to check for length. So I do a draft form in Word, and I would write exactly why I'm looking to connect with them. So for me, my career is really in banking. I really enjoy banking. So in the future, I would want to connect with aspiring banking professionals. And one of the things I would write is why. So I would write, really looking to connect with you. I've seen your career grow in banking within the human resources function. I would love to connect with you and learn more about how you got to where you are today. So again, that's very personalized. That person will say, yes, she didn't just randomly add me. She added me for a purpose. And people will feel really good if you inspire them to go a certain direction, or if you're looking to learn or gain from them. Having that additional message greatly helps. But if you add me, and some people have done that and said, you work for a big company, I want to get a job. That's not appropriate. So please, when you're adding them, don't ask for a job. Really put it in a polite, diplomatic manner, and well-versed, and read through it in Word and then put it in. And if someone doesn't respond, don't push them. They may not respond for a few weeks because they may be busy. They may not have seen your message. So, it might take 3 to 4 weeks for them to accept you, and they may not respond to your personalized message, but at least they're a contact now, and then you can message them again in the future.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. So the other piece on the slide is influencers. Some people, they may want to follow aspiring professionals like Bill Gates or other people. And again, depending on who it is, you need to determine, is it appropriate to have that influencer public on my profile? This is a professional brand you're building, so you want to make sure the people that you're following are credible resources and that they really add value to the brand. So I follow Bill Gates as well because I find he shares a lot of inspirational articles, a lot of things about the pandemic and what he's doing to make things better. So I feel that he's of great value to me, and I have that publicly listed. And if you are going to follow followers, you can, sorry, influencers, you can choose 2 or 3 to follow or more. But again, be mindful of that information overload that I spoke about. So sharing comments, right now, a lot of people are sharing comments on LinkedIn, but we want to be careful. LinkedIn is a professional platform. It is not social media. It's not Facebook. It's not Instagram. It's not any of those other avenues. It is a professional platform. So for this, I say it's part of your brand. So when I share anything, I have the option of choosing who I would like to share it with. So if you see here, I have anyone highlighted. So this is public. So what anyone means is it doesn't mean anyone in your contact list. It means anyone in the public. So on LinkedIn, if other people, so say for example, Hussein's my connection, and he has a bunch of other connections that are not within my circle, they're not in my LinkedIn connections, so they're outside of that, they can see it. Anyone on LinkedIn can see this post if you put anyone. They do not need to be an accepted connection of yours. Anyone can read it. You can drop down and you can choose just LinkedIn connections, or you could choose just contacts at SFU or contacts at TD. So you can really own in on who you want to see your post. The benefit of anyone is it adds more traction. It draws more individuals to your profile. The reason you want that is potential employers can see it. Then if you have a good headline saying you're looking for opportunities and you've shared something really inspirational or something about your career or a post that would add value, then individuals might say, this might be a great person to hire. You can insert comments, and here you can actually name drop someone. So you can put at and it will tag that person. Make sure if you're tagging someone that it's actually valid, it's credible, it's someone that would want to be tagged. You could mention companies, schools, or you could just write a post as to why you're sharing this. So in this example, I shared something about Justin Trudeau about a subsidy. So this, from a career perspective, may not be as applicable. It would be more applicable to my contacts. So in this case, I would probably just share with LinkedIn contacts, but you don't want to be saturating the board too much. I only share things if I think it adds merit or value. So for example, if I were teaching a course and it finished, I would thank my students. I would put that to anyone. So I could show that, hey, I had a great class. I really love teaching. I'm passionate about it. And I hope they were able to learn from me as I was from them. So that would cause a lot of positive commentary. People can comment on it, they can like it, they can clap. So it would cause a lot of that. Again, I would only highlight professional highlights. I would only share professional articles because to me, this is my brand. This is an extension of my resume. I would not just post happy birthday or anything personalized. I would use Facebook, text, social, like Instagram, any sort of other social media for that. This platform, I highly suggest to keep it professional.
Jabin, just a follow-up question on that. When you think
Yeah,
about sharing content and building a profile and building a brand, to what
yeah.
degree do you believe that content creation is important in your social presence or your LinkedIn profile? So like actually creating content and doing that as well, as particularly for those that are in the business of providing services, or if you're a business owner looking to grow, or you're an individual looking to set yourself apart.
I think it greatly adds value. People see that, they post on it. If you post it to anyone and you share content, it adds so much value. So in LinkedIn, it will show up at the top. People may share it. It gets retweeted or reshared on multiple platforms. So I would highly recommend it. For me personally, I do it about once a month just so I stay relevant. So it forces me to learn about a particular avenue. It forces me to highlight my profile. If I had a business, it'd be a great opportunity to bring business to you. I highly suggest it for those that own businesses. And in this type of environment, I would say at minimum once a month is what you should be doing. Right now, revenues are down. You want to reattract customers. Now is a time of rebuilding. Outside of a pandemic, I would say minimum once a quarter or twice a quarter. So again, twice, once every 2 months minimum is what you should be doing. You want to add traction to your page. You want to draw business. You want to draw clients. If you have a business page, it will gain followers. And again, if you have something that's pertinent to share with people, for example, if you're a mortgage broker and you want to say something about interest rates or the pandemic, that's a great option. Make your own content. Don't copy verbatim. You can also share a great article. It's with LinkedIn, you can create articles yourself, and then it shows that it was created on LinkedIn and you can share it. If you're not sure how to do that, there's a great job aid under help on how to create that avenue. But creating your own content, or if you've written an article on another platform, definitely share it, and try to do that in this day and age once a month. And I would tag industries. You can hashtag. So if I was a mortgage broker, I would hashtag mortgage brokers in Canada, BC industry, or whatever province or city you're from. And I would try to tag as much so I could create traction to draw people to my business. So with developing your brand, as Hussein asked about sharing content, you can also share an article that could be created by you or by someone else. One of the things you might want to do is a link to the article, and what LinkedIn does is it actually highlights and it populates with the image of the link. So if you have a picture as well as the content, so people can see it. So I would tag that on there, and I would write why I was sharing that article. What is the purpose behind it? Who is it benefiting? Why does it add value? And I would keep it concise, so you can share an article, photo, or an update. But again, keep it professional. That is the key. LinkedIn is a professional platform. So this is an example of one of the series that I did. I use numbers. Numbers are always great. So if you're trying to highlight something you've done that has been really successful, you want to highlight numbers. If you've done a major project, can you publicly share that? First of all, determining what is confidential. If you're sharing something confidential, you could get in big trouble. So make sure you are approved to share that piece. And then sharing a link if you have it, sharing an award that you won. These are great options to highlight your own experience. And then for articles, if you've done an article or your company's done an article or there's a press release, that is a great option to share it as well. If you own your own organization, have your own business, and there's something in the industry impacting your business in a positive manner, it's a great option to share an article on that. If your business has won an award or it's made the news or anything like that, again, a great avenue, an option to share that. So with making connections, Hussein and I chatted about making a personalized connection and sending that customized message. Now, there are different tiers of connections. So if you are connected and they're your contact, they're called a first. A second is someone you have a mutual connection with, but they're not your direct contact just yet. You may choose to send a personalized message and add them. Third and higher, you cannot always message. So there are different tiers of LinkedIn accounts. There's something called a premium account. There is a 1 month free trial version. I tried it out. For me personally, I didn't like it because it's really good for people looking to source employees or source any sort of employment or talent for their company, because you can view anyone's profile. What's really great about premium as well is you can send messages to any contact. It doesn't matter if they're first, second, or third. You can send it to anybody, even outside of your direct connections. So you can send something called an in-mail. Instead of a message, you can send an in-mail, even though they're not your direct contact. So that's something you might want to try and play around with. There is a 30-day, free trial version, and then at the end make sure that if you don't like it that you discontinue it so you don't get charged. But like I said, I tried it. It wasn't for me. I'm not looking for employees or any sort of talent, but if I was a recruiter or if I had my own business and I required really a niche set of a software developer or specific skill set, then in those situations I 100% would get it because it would add value. But you know what you can do? You can try it for 30 days. If you like it, great, and it works well for you, fantastic. But if it doesn't, you can cancel it. So these are the groups that I spoke about. There are groups of professionals as well. So if I was looking to join, for example, business analysts, there are members. And if you see here, you can make it visible. So if you're looking to do a career change and you haven't yet advertised it, you may not want to make it visible. So you have the option for that. Some groups, maybe your alumni network for like SFU alumni or UBC or whatever school you went to, Western, those are great to have on your profile. You may also want to join industry professionals. Earlier on in my career, I was debating whether to go into banking or mining. So what I did is I joined mining groups. So I joined mining business professionals, mining HR professionals, and I joined a couple of groups that I thought would add value so I could see what are the trends in the industry, what are the challenges, also where are they hiring in mining. So that was great value to me. I made all of those invisible so you could not see it on my profile, yet I could still follow it and I could still see the push notifications. So just like your resume, you want to highlight your education as well, and you can add projects, activities, a description. In the case that you feel there's a gap between the job description, so where you're looking to apply, and your resume, you could definitely highlight some courses you took. With a lot of our universities and colleges and diplomas we're obtaining, there are great projects that are highly relatable to the job we're applying to. Also, internships you may have done through the university. So this is a great option to highlight that. You can add a link, you could add your project. If you're working with others, make sure it's okay for you to share that project on your LinkedIn, but you can add group projects, you can add individual projects. Just make sure it's not too saturated and you keep it clean and concise so that if people are reading through it, it'd be easy to read and there's not multiple links. I would say 1 to 2 links maximum, and maybe a course description if you don't have any relevant working experience in that field or in that industry. So some LinkedIn trends. Some of the trends that we see is you want to be very cautious and very strategic on what you put as your title. So going back to the earlier slide where I showed you my profile and I showed you my job title, and I said this isn't actually my job title at my employer, it's something that I want to market myself with. Under employee experience, employment history, I have my actual job title, but not in the profile section where I have my name, my designations, and a description of the role I do. So the reason you want to be strategic about it is a lot of recruiters and employers will look up titles. So in this case, they're looking for implementation and clients. So if you are in human resources and they're looking for human resources and law, that's an example of a combination they could use. Recruitment and corporate. So they're looking for a corporate recruiter, but they're wording it that way to see what experience you have. So again, artificial intelligence is a big piece of this. So I would use commonly used terms for job descriptions that you want to apply to. So if you use something really specific, no one's going to know what you're talking about. People specialists, that's too specific. Maybe using something more generic like customer service manager. Using commonly used terms will help pick you up in these searches that recruiters are doing. So really think through, what am I putting as my title? So if you look, this person put project management and implementation professional. It popped up when they're searching for implementation clients because they had implementation. This other person put implementation manager at Achievers. Again, it popped up. You don't have to put your company name if you don't want to. You can if you want to. The other option is automatically the current job title that you have will pop up to LinkedIn. I overrode it and I put the job title that I thought would attract the most hits to my profile because recruiters will be coming through, employers will be coming through. Even though they're not a contact, most of them have this premium profile so they can view anybody. So I highly recommend spending some time. And I did spend a number of days thinking through what would be the best title. The other thing that I did is I looked at people at similar levels of my career across the world, not just in Canada. I looked across the world. I looked at USA. I looked in areas within Australia. I looked everywhere. And I saw what titles they had. And so if you look up, for example, if I wanted to work for Amazon, I looked up Amazon senior HR professional. It will show me everyone who is working there around the world. And so I looked at their profile, and again, if it's private, you can still see their job title. And I looked at how are they advertising themselves. If I know I want to work for Amazon as a senior HR manager or director, I need to use a similar title to them. So that's what I did, and that's what worked best for me.
Chippy, you bring up a good point, and as we try to market ourselves to employers and being specific and just in the titles, and we look to build out our profile and our brand,
Yeah.
how personal should your LinkedIn profile be? Like, what's the balance between making it about you and your experience, but also a little bit about what your personality is like, and that professionalism? What's that balance?
So I would say, depending on the employer that you're looking to apply, if it's banking, I would be a little bit more formal. If it's a startup or tech company, you could be a little bit more casual. I would really depend it on the industry and the role that you were looking for. A good place to highlight it is at the bottom, there's an option for hobbies. But again, remember, this is your professional profile. Volunteer experience is a great way to demonstrate you're well-rounded. And then your skill summary up top that we went through at the beginning of the presentation, that's where you can show, you might want to put an avid golfer or something about you, and it can show that you're driven to succeed in your hobbies just as much as you're driven to succeed in your career. So that could be a great option to show that you're well-rounded. For me personally, I don't do that. I want to keep it professional because I'm looking at the banking industry, so it's a little bit more formalized. So again, I would say cater it to where you're looking to apply. Startup, it would be great. They want more personality. They want to know more about your company. They want to know more about the culture. So in that case, I would make it more casual. If you're looking at maybe a mid-size or a smaller company, then I would put more about your personality because they're looking for that. Smaller knit team, personality is so key to make sure everyone jives together. It's more about fit. If I was applying to a company like Zappos, which is very well known for organizational culture, you want to highlight your personality in those. So reading through the company profile, reading through the job description and what they're looking for. Some of them actually ask you what character you would be in a TV series. So if that's what they're asking you in the job application, you definitely would want to personalize your profile a little bit more, but take it with a grain of salt. I would only do that if you're looking to apply to that kind of company.
So it just seems to resound that you need to invest the time, understand what you're looking for, and tailor it to that. It seems like that's a recurring theme throughout our series together.
Yeah, so I would really think about what position, what level am I looking to apply to? And then would this LinkedIn, which is like a generic application, would this really apply? So again, it is customized, but it's not customized to that individual job description. It's more customized to that position profile. So I'd take a look at that, and I would take a look at the industry. You may say, you know what, I want to be this level. I'm not particular on industry. So then you can decide what to highlight here and there. But again, I would recommend keeping it professional more so than less. That's the safest route to go. And there is a hobby section where you can highlight that at the bottom, or you can use your skill summary, but you want to use the space effectively.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So through the employer's lens, this shows you, so the previous slide and this slide, so the previous slide shows you if the employer doesn't have you as a contact, which 99% of cases they wouldn't, it shows you what does your profile look like. So you see the pictures that I spoke about, your name, your title, where you're located, all of that shows up. I would not recommend putting Canada. I would recommend being really specific. So Ottawa, Canada, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, something like that. The more specific, the better. Then the other thing that they can look at is accomplishments. So again, you can choose whether you want to keep this section private or public within the settings section. If it's public, everyone can see it. If it's private, only your connections can see it. I keep mine public because I want to show my accomplishments. So accomplishments are any awards you may have achieved, any features you may have gotten, any publications you may have is a great opportunity to highlight. So in this case, this person did 9 publications. I would make sure, are the publications relevant to the brand I'm trying to develop? If you're trying to be a human resources professional, does that relate back to it? If you're trying to be a finance professional or customer service, does it relate back to it? You don't want to saturate your LinkedIn profile. If you want to show you're well-rounded, then that's good, but don't do too many publications. 9 is a lot, so I would say, the majority of this should be pertinent to this individual's career. I always put all the languages that I can speak because that's key to me. It shows that, if you have a certain demographic, you're demonstrating that you can communicate with that too. It's also showing a cultural element. So back to Hussein's question of how can you show personality, this can also show your demographic. So I highlight every language I can speak. And then I spoke briefly on honors and awards. If you are featured in anything, if you have received any sort of honor or award, put that in there. But please don't go all the way back to high school. I say university and above, nothing prior to that. High school's too far back. Stick to university and above. So final tips, there is a LinkedIn mobile app. It depends on how connected you want to be. Generally, before I start work, I go on my desktop and I look at LinkedIn for about 15 to 20 minutes every day because I want to see what's happening in the industry. What are my contacts doing? Do they have any articles I should be reading? They share a lot of inspirational stuff, great TED Talks. They share great overall articles and trends. So if you want to install the app, it means you're even more connected. You can get push notifications to your phone. The problem is you can turn the notifications off, but it's all, LinkedIn's going to be there. So it depends on how present you want to be. If I was searching for a job, there is a function that we'll learn about in a future session on how to set a notification for any jobs that come up in with the job title that you're interested in. By having the LinkedIn app, it pushes it to your phone. So you get it daily, maybe even hourly. So you can set your preferences. So LinkedIn app is great if you want to invest that amount of time. If you think you'll be overwhelmed and you want to decide when in the day you're going to do it, then I would say don't get the app. That way you own and you can control when you go on it. Add one another to LinkedIn. I really recommend you sit through and you think through the context you've made and you take the time to really reflect on today's webinar and add those individuals to your LinkedIn profile. They may be former colleagues that have moved on and you can ask them about their current experience. It may be previous supervisors, previous people you went to university with. Really take a look and look at your network. I even look at my neighbors. Some of them are working in industries that I'm interested in. So I add them. I look at the community. I look at previous employers. I look at colleagues. I look at all of that. So definitely take the time. There is something called a networking chart. So you can take the time to branch out and think through connections you have and that you want to add. I recommend just to stay active on LinkedIn, if you want to try out some of the suggestions that I've recommended, message one LinkedIn contact every week for the next 3 months, just to stay in touch and see how it feels. One of the things you might want to do in the next 3 months is request for a recommendation. That is a great option to add value to your LinkedIn profile. And those are all my tips for our session today. And these are some resources that I have. So the Government of Canada National Occupation Classifications. The reason I'm sharing this is if you're not sure what to include in your employment history, if you actually go on this website and you search, you can search every job description and that will help you within each experience and indicate what to highlight. And then there are some great resources and certifications on II Canada. So again, if you're looking at an industry or you're looking at a job posting or organization you want to work for and you think, oh, I think there's a bit of a learning gap between where I am and where I want to be, this would provide a great avenue for you to be able to gain that experience. Use this time wisely. If you're out of a job or you're currently working but you're not sure what your future holds, really invest in yourself. And even if you have a job and you're looking elsewhere, it's a good time to invest in yourself regardless of your situation. So this provides a variety of resources for you to be able to get these certifications and gain more knowledge. And right now, because of the pandemic, a lot of places are offering free courses. So it's a great opportunity to take advantage of those.
Jabin, you've provided such great advice, first in our resume series, now in our LinkedIn series. And if you think about from a LinkedIn perspective, it's such a powerful tool for connecting with other people in your job search as well. What are three common mistakes that individuals tend to make as we kind of bring this session to a close? What are three things that, people just seem to do poorly on LinkedIn that you would like to share with everyone watching today?
Definitely. So the first thing is going back to your header. the header is so important to really invest your time in the title. You want to use the headline. It's a critical piece. I showed you how recruiters look you up, how employers look you up. You want them to be able to find you. So you don't have to use your current job title, as I mentioned. You can choose a LinkedIn headline that brands you more powerfully. So LinkedIn could give you recommendations. You could search similar people at the same level. You could Google job descriptions that you're interested in and see what titles they call that. So use the headline effectively as possible. Second piece on that same avenue is there's a summary underneath the headline, which is about me. Make sure you profile your key skill sets, any industry experience, any certifications, courses. You can highlight it up there as well as elaborate further down. It's a great way to highlight your profile, and we don't take advantage of it enough. So using keywords again, so you have your header, but then using keywords and lingo within that section is so pertinent because they can, when recruiters or employers are looking for it, they can pull that section as well. So making sure you have that, and thinking if a recruiter or an employer is looking at my LinkedIn profile, within the first section, within the first 15 to 30 seconds, would I be able to captivate them with my experience? Because they're not going to read lower down. With about me, have I made an effective highlight of myself? I spent hours working on mine. I recommend you do sit through it, do a little bit of time each day saying, yep, that reflects me. Look at the job positions you're targeting and make sure that it's a good, concise summary of what you bring to the table. And the third thing that we really make the mistake on is not keeping it professional. I've really mentioned this is a professional tool. Remember, it's a brand that you're building. Any articles you share, anyone you follow, any groups you follow, it should be professional. You want to make sure that it's not social media. This is not Facebook. Your picture should be professional. Your content, any comments that you post on LinkedIn. So if someone's posting something about a politician, you feel strongly against it, don't post your comment. Tread away from it. You don't have to comment on everything. I personally don't share political views, religious views, things like that. And anything controversial, I stay away from. So be polite and courteous and reflect your brand. And remember, anything you're sharing is public. So you want to make sure that you build your profile in a positive manner. Once people have seen your comment, you can't take it away. You could delete it, but they've already seen what you've written. So keep it professional and keep your brand looking in a positive limelight.
No, I think you've shared like a number of useful tips and just
Thank you.
continue to emphasize the importance of LinkedIn as we kind of transform into this next phase of our careers and how we can best leverage ourselves to set ourselves up for success. So I just want to, thank all of you that are watching for attending again, and on behalf of the Jamaat and everyone watching, I want to thank you, Jabin, for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us today and to share all of your insights around LinkedIn. For all of you that are watching, if you ever need any support, please reach out to the EPB through the Skills and Employment Program. We have counselors to support you for any of your employment-related needs, so don't hesitate at any time. I do want to take this moment to remind everyone of the hotline and the access point that has been set up for any member of the Jamaat seeking assistance or information during this difficult time. We hope that you can use this common access point to the right services and the information that you're seeking. You can call the access line at 1-888-536-3599, or you can email at any time at access@iicanada.net. Thank you all for attending. Please stay safe and Yali Mulad.